As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It is my retro gaming podcast where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and we geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And this week it is episode 125. It's a big one, and it's another one of our revisited episodes. Every couple of months we're taking a look back at one of the big heavy-hitting titles that we covered in the very early days of the podcast when we had no idea what we were doing. And now that we've got about a 30% idea of what we're doing, I want to give some of those early games the due that they so rightfully do deserve. And this time around, man, oh man, we are talking about one of the all-time absolute great, bona fide, locked-in, first ballot Hall of Fame, fucking iconic video games ever made. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Fuck, I love this game. We all love this game. My buddy, frequent guest, Patreon supporter, and Zelda super fan, Bradley McCue, gave me a call this week, and we spent a good hour just talking about A Link to the Past's greatness. So I hope you all enjoy that. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. But speaking of greatness, it is time for our fabled Remember the Game intro. I'm getting good at those segues. When I stick to my fucking notes, I nailed them. That feels good. And quickly, before I get into the intro, which is not quick, never forget, as always, there are timestamps in the description box of the podcast telling you when to skip to if you only want to listen to Link to the Past talk, or you only want to listen to fucking whatever, okay? If you want to leave me, there's tons of reasons to leave the show a bad review. The long intro is not one of them, because I give you the option to skip it. All right, if you want to say, hey, the host sucks, the quality of the podcast sucks, this game sucks, Adam sucks, blank is a stupid last name, fucking Great Britain is not a city, stop telling us that we're a city, you need more ads because we like ads in our podcast. If you want to plug any of those fucking things, if you want to leave me a bad review for any of those, bad review, have at her. But no more bad reviews because the intro's too long, because you have a fucking option to skip it. You goddamn mouth-breathing jack-offs, and it's fucking 3 minutes into the show when I tell you when you can skip, all right? So there's no fucking excuse anymore. Skip anytime, fuck. Anyway, the intro is a little long. I understand that, so I got you, all right? I've already got your download. If you're listening to me right now, you've already downloaded the podcast, so thank you very much for that, for the statistic. I appreciate it. Now the show is yours to pick apart as you please. If you don't like the crust, don't eat the fucking crust. The intro to this show is the crust. I love the crust, but Either way, on the note of downloads, thank you to everyone that has not only downloaded and listened to Remember the Game, but thank you to everyone that has jumped onto the Game Patch bandwagon over the past few months and listened to that. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's my weekly modern gaming news podcast where I do what I do here and swear and struggle to form a complete sentence and all that kind of stuff, but I do what we'll talk in PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, stuff like that instead. And you can find Game Patch wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes go live every single Monday, or you knew it was coming. Sign up for our Patreon and you'll get it 3 days early. You'll get to listen to Game Patch every single Friday morning instead of waiting until Monday. Monday's going to suck anyway. My podcast isn't good enough to fix your Monday, but my podcast is good enough to make your Friday a little better, right? I was going to throw a really disgusting sexual reference in there right now, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say I've got you. I'm your fluffer. I'll make your weekend better. Just check it out on Friday morning instead. And it's only $2 for the entire month as well. $2 for the month. Netflix is fucking way more than $2. You could argue Netflix is better. I would actually argue maybe it isn't because there's a lot of shit on Netflix. But either way, $2 a month not only gets you early access to Game Patch, it gets you exclusive access to our Patreon exclusive podcast Expansion Pass, plus all the old episodes of Expansion Pass. You can pick the games we cover here on the show. You can submit comments to be read on all our podcasts. You get access to our new Discord where we're always fucking around and talking video games and stuff like that. And most importantly, out of all those things, you support me and you support Remember the Game Industries, okay? Because I'm just one nerd in his spare bedroom with too much time on his hands churning out 3 fucking podcasts per week. And as you may notice, we don't run a ton of boring ads on the show or anything. We run the odd one. If it's something I really believe in, I'll run an ad. There may or maybe not be one coming up a little bit later that's really, really good, I promise. But we don't run very many. You guys know what happens when you listen to those other podcasts with fucking 400 ads for goddamn mattresses and blankets and fucking Viagra and shitty razors and all that boring stuff. We don't do that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Instead of throwing your change into a fountain and wishing for a PlayStation 5 that you're not going to get anyway, throw it at me. I'll take your fucking change. Almost 150 of you have. So thank you so much. Patreon.com/remember the game. Just $2, okay? You support me. You get my eternal praise and gratitude. You can't put a price on that. Okay, well, yeah, I guess you can, and it's $2, but either way. As I said, one of the perks is you get exclusive access to our weekly podcast Expansion Pass. Last Sunday was episode 35, and it was a mini indie review, and I did spoiler-free reviews of 3 indie games that I really, really love, 3 completely different games, SteamWorld Dig 2, Into the Breach, and Bloodstain Curse of the Moon, and there was great feedback on that, so thank you so much. This week, for episode 36, our Patreons actually got to pick the topic, and after a hard-fought poll, 2 lawsuits, several recounts, all the smoke is cleared, all the ballots are counted, and the winning topic is the top 10 games that I should love but don't. So that will be this Sunday's podcast. And for those of you that have asked, you can actually see an entire list of all the Expansion Pass episodes over at rememberthegamepodcast.com. So yeah, patreon.com/rememberthegame. Thanks a lot. Oh yeah, and I'm on Twitch. That's free. You should come by and say hi. I'm on there Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday nights from 8 to 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I play video games. I talk to you guys. I usually spend more time talking to you guys than I actually do playing video games. It's a lot of fun. And I had mentioned last week that my streaming schedule might get a little fucky due to comedy, but comedy isn't comedying right now. It's not a problem for me anymore. So I will be around at those exact times. And don't forget, December 18th and 19th is our rescheduled date for the 24-hour Twitch stream for Extra Life to help raise money for the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton. It's a great cause. So I'd love it if you came by and said hi, because no matter where you live in the world, I'm on there for 24 hours. So at some point, you'll be sitting on the toilet with nothing to do during that 24 hours. So just put Twitch on your phone. Find us. We're at Member the Game, not Remember. Member the Game over on Twitch. Come by, give me a hard time. We can raise some money for the Children's Hospital, and you can watch me swear and eat donaires with your family. It'd be a lot of fun. And that's good enough. That's enough blowing myself. Let's blow you guys. You know how it works. Let's blow in some cartridges. It is our opening segment here on the show. I read a few comments and questions from our Patreons, usually gaming related, but not always. And we call this segment Blowing in the Cartridge. And dude, for the second week in a row, we got a ton of messages. More than I can read, which is so dope. So thank you all so much. I do try to get everyone on the show as regularly as possible. So if you don't get read, keep trying. I promise I will get you on the show soon. Thank you so much for the messages. Let's kick this thing off. And the first message, the first cartridge for me to blow this week is Ryan Kinchin's cartridge. Ryan wrote in and said, How do you feel about episodic games like Hitman, Telltale Games, and more recently the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Do you prefer games of that size and scale, chopped up into manageable chunks and released quarterly, yearly, whenever they come out? Or would you prefer the developer to just take longer to finish the game and just drop a beast on us that'll easily soak up 100 plus hours of our time? As someone who waited on Kingdom Hearts 3 for 13 goddamn years, I understand games of that size require a lot of time to create, polish, and perfect. But on the other hand, one of my biggest gaming pet peeves is cliffhangers, and God knows episodic games do that the best. Well written, Ryan. Well written, Ryan. Say that 10 times fast. Good question, man. I think for the most part, I have zero. I don't really have a big beef with the episodic approach for the most part. Like, to use Final Fantasy VII Remake and to use that as an example. Like, I desperately want to play Part 2 of Final Fantasy VII Remake right now. Like, I would do some ungodly things to get my hands on that game. But I will say, dude, by the time I finished Part 1, I had probably put almost 40 hours into it, and I was ready to play something else. I was like, that was, it's like I pushed back from the table, lit a smoke. I was like, I'm full. That's enough for me. So I don't hate the episodic approach to video games. Yeah, I really like Witcher 3 a lot. But it's just too much. It's too big for me. I never finished it. There's so much content there, quality content, that I probably would have paid them for a second game. If they had made Witcher 3 40, 50, 60 hours long, ended on a cliffhanger, and then put the rest of it into a second game, I probably would have bought the second one, and I would have split it into 2 bite-sized chunks. Well, not bite-sized, but 2 meals, and I would have been okay. I prefer that over a 100-plus hour thing that takes up a month and a half of my fucking life. And you said that cliffhangers are your pet peeves. I'm not on the same boat as you. I actually really, really like them when they're done right. Not to spoil anything, even though it's an old game, but the ending to Halo 2 is a cliffhanger, and I thought it was executed fucking perfectly. I love that ending. And I really like that feeling of anticipation once you get the cliffhanger and you can't wait for the next one. My only real beef with the episodic game is when they clearly could have fit everything into one 40 or 50 hour package, and they stretched it up, split it up, and used it to get more money. And admittedly, I can't even think of an example of that, but that would be an example of something that would piss me off. If you're going to hit me with a cliffhanger and then you expect me to shell out, another 60 or 80 bucks for a second game, then your fucking game had better be a 10. You know what I mean? Like, it's a ballsy move. But on that note, like, I found that I either like a game enough to buy and play another one, or I probably didn't make it to the cliffhanger ending in the first place because I thought the game wasn't, it just wasn't my jam and I wasn't feeling it. So I guess a very short answer to a very long explanation is I have no problem with episodic games if they're done well. And if they're not done well, then it doesn't bother me because I probably didn't finish your fucking game to find out that it's episodic to begin with. So thanks for writing in, Ryan. Good question, man. I like that. OG Big Titus wrote into us and said, can you pick a GOAT year of gaming? And I guess if you're old like me, or I guess older than me because I'm old and I know, but GOAT is greatest of all time. So can I pick a greatest of all time year for gaming? Not off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I mean, I know it's probably not the answer you were looking for, but I just, I'd really have to flip back and look at what came out each year and stuff. I would like to do that. Maybe that would make a great episode of Expansion Pass someday, is ranking the greatest years in gaming, when I actually sit down and look at what games came out what years and stuff like that. From a personal perspective, 2020 has been a fucking great year for gaming. I think that the shitstorm going on outside of the gaming bubble probably made the air in the gaming bubble that is 2020 seem better than it is, because I didn't want to fucking deal with anything else. But 2020 I thought was actually a pretty solid year. I'll do that down the road. I'll rank them and do an episode of Expansion Pass about that after I've done some homework. For the sake of answering your question, Titus, I'll say whatever year I got my SNES is my GOAT year. But I can't remember what year that was because I know we didn't get it the year it came out. So half-assed answer. Good question. That I'll give you a better answer for months from now when I do an episode and forget to give you credit for giving me the idea. Thanks for writing in, buddy. Stupid Monkey wrote into us on Patreon and said, who wins in a hot dog eating contest? Mario, Wario, Yoshi, Bowser, Sonic, Big the Dumb Cat, Kirby, or one of those Japanese guys that looks like a twig but can eat 1,000,000 hot dogs in 30 seconds? If we're talking real life, if all those video game characters came into the real world, then I think my money is on the twig guy, the quick eating twig guy. But if we're talking in the gaming universe, I think I gotta go Kirby. I was gonna say Bowser because he's so big, but like we never actually see him eat. That could all just be a glandular thing. Whereas Kirby just fucking swallows everything, right? Like he's like that Joey Chestnut guy, but he didn't have to dip him in water. He just like, and they're like, I just swallowed really loud. You probably couldn't pick that up on the mic. So that'd be probably my pick. Would probably be Kirby. Yeah, I'm gonna go Kirby. Fuck yeah. Even in real life, maybe Kirby. I think real life Kirby would be fucking horrifying. But yeah, I'm gonna go with that. And then, good question, Stupid Monkey. I like that. And then finally, you guys know I like to end blowing in the cartridge with one letter that wins the prestigious Letter of the Week, Letter Time, Letter Spot. And with that said, you guys, it's letter time. It's letter time. And this week's letter comes in from Andre SJA Flash, who wrote into us on Patreon and said, "How do you feel about officially moving the Game Awards to January as it should be? I think it's silly where it is currently. It's effectively disqualifying end-of-the-year games that then subsequently have no chance of being remembered for the conversation the following year." Fuck, Andre, you're a very intelligent person, but your note contains too many big words that I am too stupid to read. So it effectively disqualifies end-of-the-year games that then subsequently have no chance of being remembered for the conversation the following year. This happened to Jedi Fallen Order last year, and it will happen to Cyberpunk 2077 this year. I do think Cyberpunk will hold the attention of the gaming world for longer than Fallen Order did, but I still think that the game will suffer come time for the awards next year. You know what? It's interesting to me, actually, Flash. I like... So, guys, quickly, if you don't know, a lot of gaming media sites and a lot of, gaming news sources, stuff like that, they award their Games of the Year titles in December. The Game Awards themselves, like the big show, is streaming on December 10th, I believe, this year. So games that release in December are SOL, which, as Flash mentioned, is what's going to happen to Cyberpunk 2077 this year. And obviously, there's no guarantee that Cyberpunk would have won Game of the Year, but I'm certain it would have been a contender. And now it literally has to go wire to wire and hope that it holds up. And 12 months from now, after a year of PS5 and Xbox Series X games, we remember Cyberpunk. So that's a tough spot for them to be in. And I think it's dumb, quite frankly. This will be the first year that Remember the Game Industries has awarded its official Game of the Year title. Last year I did say that Fire Emblem Three Houses was my Game of the Year, but I didn't do a full podcast or anything about it, which I do plan to do this year. I will be doing an episode of Expansion Pass where I rank my top X games of the year at 10 or whatever it ends up being, and it'll probably be the first Sunday in January on Expansion Pass, because it's not Game of the 11 months. It's Game of the Year. So finish the fucking year. I don't understand. I don't get why. I don't like it. I don't get it. And that shit is not going to fly here, you know? Like, not at fucking Remember the Game Industries. And I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I can't imagine too many people buy a game just because it says Game of the Year on the box. I'm sure it helps a little bit. It's a nice honor. But I don't think I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I don't understand the logic behind it. I agree with you 100%, Flash, and that shit's not happening here. We'll be awarding our Game of the Year when the calendar says that year is over. So in early January 2021. That said, I'm not going to have time to play Cyberpunk, so I guess it's kind of in the same boat anyway. It's not like it's going to make my fucking contenders list because I'm not going to have time to play it. I don't think that's going to win my Game of the Year anyway. I kind of get lukewarm on those. I'm not that excited about Cyberpunk. I'm sure it's going to be rad. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad game at all. But I'm just looking at it like Witcher 3, and I'm like, I'm never going to have time to finish this fucking game. There's fucking 2 months of my life getting pumped into that game to finish it. So, but anyway, yes, we'll be awarding ours in January. I think that's when they should be awarding it to begin with. You and I are on the same fucking page here, my friend. And that's enough blowing this week. Thank you to all of you that wrote in. As always, I appreciate it. I'm sorry I couldn't read everybody. Keep sending them in. Promise you'll get on the show sooner than later. And that'll do it for that. Let's move into our smash hit segment. The official game show of Remember the Game Industries. Play one, remake one, erase one. And a huge thank you, as always, to Classic Concentration from the original NES for unknowingly providing us our official theme music for Play 1, Remake 1, Erase 1. I shouldn't call it the original NES. I should just call it the NES. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It bothers me when other people do that, but then I fucking do it. Anyway, the rules are simple, you guys. Each week, I give our listeners 3 retro video games. They can play one as it was released. They can remake one as a modern, current-gen AAA game. And the third game is erased from history forever. And this week, I figured since we're talking Zelda anyways, I'm sure most of our listeners are Zelda fans. Let's just stick with that theme. This is our old Zelda games that haven't already been remade and aren't Ocarina of Time edition of the show. And our contenders are the original Legend of Zelda for the NES, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link for the NES, and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64. As always, there are no wrong answers, but there is a correct one. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. And for the record, just quickly, some of you have pointed out that Majora's Mask has already been remade. I respectfully disagree. I look at the 3DS version as just a remastered port, to be honest. Like Link's Awakening on the Switch, Final Fantasy VII Remake, the Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, those are remakes. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're remaking the original Legend of Zelda, like, it's going to look like if you were to remake Majora's Mask, that's what everyone's arguing. To me, a remake of Majora's Mask would be Majora's Mask looking like Breath of the Wild, not Majora's Mask looks like the Nintendo 64 Majora's Mask, but on the 3DS. So that's different. That doesn't count. So that's what I'm trying to say here. Thank you, as always, to everyone that played. We literally had over 24 replies this week, which is the most we've ever had. I can't read all of them, but I will read a few. And this one caused some beef, man. There was some very hotly contested. Some of you were arguing with each other respectfully, which is nice. In the Patreon page, fucking nailed it. Because some weeks you guys say it's too easy, and I'm glad that that was not the case this time around. So I'll get to a few of yours, then I'll tell you mine. Mulverine Films wrote into us on Patreon and said, erase Zelda 1. As long as there is no Back to the Future-esque consequences, deleting all future entries, then erase this one. Besides nostalgia, it's not worth a replay, and it's not robust enough to warrant a remake. The fact is, Link to the Past did everything that this game tried to do better. Not slamming Zelda 1, it's iconic, revolutionary, and a good game, but if we were introduced to the series with Link to the Past and no predecessors, I don't think we'd miss Zelda 1. I'd play Majora's Mask. Remapping buttons to a new controller would render this game totally worth a replay, and I would remake Zelda 2 as a better Metroidvania version of what Zelda 2 was, similar to Guacamelee. I'd play that 1,000 times more than Hyrule Warriors. You know what? So I like that we've never officially decided what the Back to the Future style consequences of erasing a game on this show are. I feel like it should stay that way, and I'm going to leave it that way. I'm never going to definitively say what happens. As far as I'm concerned, by erasing a game, you're completely gambling on and taking the chance that it won't wipe out future entries. So that's the risk reward you take by choosing which game you're going to erase. And I also totally agree with what you said, Wolverine. It's a great point, actually, that if the Legend of Zelda series had launched with A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, we wouldn't miss the first two. I can totally get on board with that logic, and I get what you're saying there. Thank you for playing, my friend. You're wrong, though. It's not the right order. At least that's not my order. And you guys know my order is the right order, and because as I'm the game show host, I make up the rules. Vincent L. wrote into us on Patreon and said, remake Majora's Mask. Haven't played it yet, but I'd love a Switch remaster. I'd play the original Zelda because it's the one that started it all, and I'd erase Zelda 2 because I can only handle one 2D Zelda, and the OG one is good enough for me. Full points, Vincent. Quick, precise, solid reasoning. Totally on board. I guess if I got to poke a hole in your thoughts, it's that if you can only play one 2D Zelda, you should play Link to the Past, not the original Zelda. But I digress. Solid arguments. Well played, my friend. Morgan wrote in and said, erase Adventure of Link because I never played it anyways. Play the original Zelda on the Switch so I can rewind my mistakes. And then remake Majora's Mask. It was definitely the dark horse of the series. So thanks for writing in, Morgan. I actually agree 1 billion% with Morgan that if you're going to play the original Legend of Zelda, play it on the Switch. It's the rewind is handy, but my primary reason for saying playing it on the Switch is because it's a very long and grindy game if you don't know where to go, and playing it handheld and being able to just put it to sleep and put it down whenever and then pick it up, it makes it so much more enjoyable to be able to wander around that map aimlessly while you're looking at, watching a fucking baseball game or something on TV. Oh, yes, that is where it's just like a long JRPG, man. Playing it on the Switch is the definitive way to play the original Legend of Zelda. Good call, Morgan. A couple more here, and then I'll tell you the right answer. What do we got? Very cool dude wrote into us on Patreon and said, play Majora's Mask. It's the Super Mario Sunshine of the Zelda universe, which means it's the second best one. Remake Zelda 2 is a massive RPG. That game is actually pretty cool, and a remake might get some people into it. And the only obvious choice is to erase the original Zelda. We can all play the better version called Breath of the Wild. So you know what? I don't agree with your order, but I do agree with some of your logic. I've said myself, I might have actually said it on the episode we did about the original Legend of Zelda a couple years ago. Breath of the Wild feels like a remake of that first game, kind of. I love thinking like Breath of the Wild is what they envisioned the original Zelda being. They just clearly didn't have the capabilities to do it. So I'm totally on board with that logic. I also agree that Majora's Mask is the Mario Sunshine of the Zelda franchise. I disagree that it's the second best ever. So I don't agree with your order. Totally understand where you're coming from, though. Very cool, dude. Well done. Zane Donovan wrote into us and said, easy one this week. I'd play Legend of Zelda as it is. I have many memories of playing this game and exploring, finding new dungeons. This is by far my favorite NES game. I would remake Majora's Mask as I feel it got boring quick and I couldn't get into it the few times I tried. But multiple friends have said to me it's a good game, just give it more time. So maybe a remake and a fresh look might keep me entertained and hooked. And I'd erase Zelda 2. It's a turd. I'm sure, I love that word. It's a turd. I'm sure most people feel like it's not even a Zelda game. And you know what's funny about that is like we have people writing in saying Majora's Mask is weird and a turd, and we have people writing in saying Zelda 2 is weird and a turd. Like you've got to decide which one is less turd, or more turd if you're into turds as well, I guess. But I get where you're coming from. And then we're going to wrap this up with a couple people that had the same thought. Geek Life Radio wrote in and said, play the original. I still jump in and play this one occasionally, and it's great. Remake Zelda 2. It'd be awesome to get this as a Breath of the Wild type game and get rid of Majora's Mask. Gamers say they like this game just so that they can try to sound cool in front of the rest of the world. That game fucking farted. That's the first on this show that game farted. I'm a little surprised and a little alarmed at the amount of you comparing Zelda to bowel movements and sounds, because like Zelda's such an iconic franchise. But I get your logic there. Calling a game a fart will get you read on this show. No One Cares wrote in and said, play the original Zelda. It's my second favorite. Link to the Past is my favorite. Remake Zelda 2, there's plenty of room for improvement. Erase Majora's Mask. I tried to like 3D Zelda games, but I just can't get into them. What's wrong with me? Absolutely nothing. No One Cares. And I'm going to read one more, and then I'm going to touch on that. But absolutely nothing is fucking wrong with you. Except not liking Breath of the Wild or Wind Waker. You got to like those two 3D. But anyway, Nick Sills wrote in and said, I'd play the original Zelda because without it, there wouldn't have been a Link to the Past, which in my opinion is the best Zelda game ever made. I'd remake Zelda 2 because it'd be cool to see a modern version of a Zelda-vania 2D Zelda. I would also take the difficulty of that game down a few notches. Me as well. And I would erase Majora's Mask. As a kid, I had time to play Majora's, but as an adult, I just don't have the patience. I recently played it on my 3DS. It's a beautiful game, and the core Zelda aspects are great. The special abilities that each mask grants is awesome as well. The 3DS version did a great job at streamlining a lot of the cumbersome aspects from the Nintendo 64 version, like the quest log, the dual screen nature, the 3DS, etc. If you're going to play it again, play the 3DS version, but even with all those upgrades, I found it a slog to complete. And shout out to all three of you, along with Keegs, 779988, Slick Rick, and Robert Lippa, for all nailing it. That is the fucking correct order. I totally agree with everything all of you guys just said. I would play the original Zelda. I know some people think it's old and it's shitty, but I played through it for the first time a couple years ago to get ready to record our episode of Remember the Game about it. I played it on my Switch, and I actually really, really liked it a lot. Like, I will play it again. No question. I fucking really was surprised by how much I liked that game. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'd remake Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. I think it's weird as well, like all you guys do, but I really, really do love the RPG mechanics, and I actually kind of like the art style of it as well. And I think that game could be dope as fuck if you just cleaned it up and made it not impossible to beat. So I would remake Zelda 2, and then I'd erase Majora's Mask. And listen, I really don't like when people take games that are special to me and they shit on them. If I tell someone I really like a game and then somebody else shits on it, instead of, if you want to be like, I fucking hate that game or I don't like that game, that's one thing. But to come down on it, that I get that it's all in good fun. It's just video games. Don't take it too serious. We're all just joking around. I get it. But I also understand that some people have special connections to their video games. I have that with some of my video games. So I'm not going to sit here and just shit all over Majora's Mask. I'm not going to do that, but I'm just going to respectfully say that I don't get it, I don't particularly like it. It doesn't click with me. I don't want to play it. And if you're going to remake a game from that era, the Nintendo 64 Zeldas, I would much prefer an Ocarina of Time remake to Majora's Mask. But that's just me. So I'm trying to be nice about it. I don't want to be a jerk. So that's my answer. Thank you to all of you that played. I'm sorry I couldn't read all of them on here. I really do try. Keep playing. And I'm not calling any of you jerks if you called Majora's Mask or Adventure of Link or whatever a turd. I'm not calling you guys jerks. I'm just saying I didn't want to, I'm the one with the microphone. I don't want to hurt everyone's feelings because I know to some people that game's special, even though it's a special turd. It's a turd, but it's a special turd, So I can't help myself. Anyway, so that'll do it for that. And before I get into what I've been playing, a lot of you have been texting me, messaging me about this Super Mario Bros. 3 story, and I want to talk about it quickly. If you don't know, a factory sealed copy of Super Mario Bros. 3 sold last week for $156,000 US, which, quick math, I think is about infinite Canadian money. 156,000 American converts to, I think infinite Canadian. But anyway, it's a lot of money. And the game is factory sealed. So that means it's got the original plastic that it came in, that it was on the wall with. The box has never been opened. Nothing in it has ever been touched. And it was graded, which is something that people do with comic books, sports cards, now video games. You send them away, and experts, and I say that you can't see the air quotes, but imagine I'm doing like the Dr. Evil, Chris Farley, fucking like over the top air quote experts give these items conditions a score out of they rank the items condition out of 10. They seal it in a clear case to preserve it. They send it back, and apparently it makes it much, much more valuable. Now this game was special. This copy of Super Mario Bros. 3 that sold, because it's the early copies of Super Mario Bros. 3 have the word bros on the cover printed on the left side of the logo as opposed to the right. And that only happened with the early copies, then they moved it over. So those copies are worth a little bit more money to collectors. That said, this game is the rare variant of the logo. It is factory sealed. It's been graded like a 9.2 and socked in a slab where it can't be hurt. Do I still think it's crazy to pay that kind of money on for a video game? Absolutely. No question. But hey, if you've got $156,000 to blow, who am I to tell you how to spend it? I'll never even see $156,000. So who the fuck am I to tell you what you should do with your money? I think it's a little crazy to spend it on a video game that you can't open or play or touch. But I digress. That's just my opinion. Now, the thing is, the company grading video games these days is called WATA, W-A-T-A. And this is, and I've talked about them on the show before. This is my sticking point here. I'm not a sealed anything collector. Even when I was into hockey cards and stuff like that, I never sent them away. I never got them graded. I have less of an issue with getting a hockey card or a baseball card or whatever graded because, like, there's nothing in the box that you can never get out or anything like that. It's just a fucking sports card that you can still read and everything. But these WATA guys, they have been grading video games for a little while now. And some people in the business think they're pretty shady. I actually kind of do, myself included, frankly. I think that they're kind of creating their own market by grading these old video games. And I can't find a definitive story, but my understanding is that there's at least rumors, if not confirmation, that they've actually done some of the bidding and buying and trying to sell some of these games. I want to say they were on Pawn Stars once, and they tried to sell a sealed, graded original Super Mario Brothers for like $1 million. And that was just them basically just trying to hype up, hey, our graded games are worth a ton of money. That's what I think they're doing. And if that's the case, they're just setting prices for a hobby that they've created. And I can't stand it. And I have no faith in the job they do. They have authenticated fake games in the past. Look it up. It's just, you're supposed to be, that's why I said experts in air quotes. You're grading these. You're supposed to be the experts. People are sending these to you, expecting you to confirm they're realists or not realists or whatever, realism, and then fucking locking them in these slabs so that people can sell them or preserve them. And you can't tell the difference between fakes and reals. So who the fuck am I? Why would I spend all this money on a game that you've declared to be legitimate and awesome when I'm like, you don't even know what a fucking legitimate game is? You know what I mean? Do you? If you want to use what they do or buy what they produce or fucking whatever, I'm not saying they're doing anything illegal. I'm not saying don't do it. Personally, even if I was into buying graded, sealed video games, I'd walk right by their stuff, anything with their name on it. I just have zero faith in what they do. I think they're just helping to drive up the prices of the games that they grade to get more people to grade more games and make more money. And I think they've created a market that shouldn't exist and they control it, and fuck that. That's my opinions on it. So there you go. And $156,000 for a game that you can't even touch. I don't get it. If I had $156,000 to spend on video games, I'd get a PS5. That's what I would do. I'd find a PlayStation 5. That's what I would do with $156,000 American. But anyway, a lot of you have been sending that story to me, and I wanted to quickly touch on it and give you my thoughts. So what have I been playing? And then we're going to get into Link to the Past. I'm still playing, actually I haven't played a lot. This last week I had a lot of comedy shows. I have not played very many video games at all this last week. I'm still thinking around Wasteland 3. I really want to finish it, but God, I love it. Like, I'm not in any hurry to finish it. God damn it, I've come close to beating Hades on my Switch. It's fucking so good. I just can't fucking beat it. I'm still playing Crash 4, but I'm right at the end of it, at least of a base run. I would like to go through and try to 100% it. One of the hardest video games I've ever played. I can't even fathom the idea of 100%ing it, but I'll probably try. I'm still playing some Tetris Effect when I need to calm down because I like that game. It's very relaxing. And I've started playing Blaster Master, mostly on my Switch to get ready for filming the Let's Play because it's the game you guys picked that I should play for the Let's Play. And Jesus Christ, that game's fucking impossible. Like, I'm going to embarrass myself on this Let's Play. It's going to be 2 episodes long because I don't think I can get past the first fucking level. But I really like it. It seems like a really fun game. I would have loved it as a kid. And that's it. That's what I've been playing. Long enough intro. Let's get into Link to the Past talk. You guys know I like to give you nerds a chance to share some of your thoughts on the games before I indulge myself and ramble for a while. And so just quickly, we got a ton of comments. I love how passionate people are about this series. Robert Lippa wrote in on Patreon and said, I would say that this is the game that turned me into a fan of the Zelda franchise. While the original will always be my favorite, this game took what the first game had and amped it up. Through storytelling, graphics, and gameplay, I remember spending hours doing nothing but exploring and finally defeating Ganon. Such a great game. The intro when the Master Sword crashes through the Triforce still gives me chills to this day. Fucking right, Robert. I actually love that intro too. Like, I can hear it in my head. You can all fucking hear it. If you've played this game, you can, like, the and then it, I can't do it. But you guys, I've hit puberty. I can't do the high-pitched sounds. But you guys know what I'm talking about. I love that too, Robert. Wolverine Films wrote in and said, I remember how I got my hands on this cartridge, but I can say from the moment I turned it on for the first time, I was blown away by how epic it seemed. The beginning's a little lackluster. I couldn't get a hang of the combat, but once you get out of the sanctuary, the game opens up. It was my first true nerd out moment. I've spent countless hours exploring, talking to everyone, figuring out how to defeat different enemies, getting killed by those fucking boulders on the mountain. He didn't say fucking, but I added that in. I spent time at school with friends talking about how to get past certain parts, what I'm supposed to do next, or talking about secrets. This might be the first game I ever 100% completed from beginning to end. The final boss is a bit of a letdown, but it was fine. Overall, I love this game, and I try to play it once a year or so. Fucking right, Wolverine. I hate those. I bring that up on the podcast. God damn it, I hate those boulders up on fucking Death Mountain, but I love this game as well. Keeg779988 says, probably my favorite game of all time. Some of my first memories are playing this with my uncle, which meant watching him until I was old enough to play. I play through it at least once a year and have even done a randomizer a couple of times. Such a solid game with tight controls. Fucking rights, Keegs. I really would like to try a randomizer of this game where they mix up where everything is. That sounds fucking awesome. And then Gary C. wrote into us and said, oh my God, I don't know where to start when it comes to this phenomenal game, which remains to this day my all-time favorite. My SNES is the first console I paid for myself after months of saving pocket money, birthday money, etc. I remember reserving it at a store and the guy remembering me when I went down to pick it up. I only had enough money to buy one game to go with it, and that game was Link to the Past. I loved the shiny gold box art, and when I placed it into my Super Nintendo, I sat mesmerized as the Triforce started gently spinning around before the Master Sword drops down. Boom, there it is again. Everybody loves that fucking intro. I remember my name and watched the intro as my character awoke, amazed by the graphics. Those first moments of the game when you're walking around in the rain with no weapons, no idea where to go, will stay with me forever. Throughout the game, there's just the right balance between exploration and subtle hints, so you're always able to progress. And the music, wow, the music. This is the one game that is almost single-handedly responsible for my love of the hobby, and I could spend hours talking about it. I cannot wait for this episode. Thank you for sharing that, Gary. Great write-in. And you don't have to wait any longer, my man. Bradley McCue and I are going to talk some Link to the Past right fucking now. Let's cue up that, the music. And let's go attack some chickens with The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, which originally released in North America way back on April 13th. 1992. Kick back, relax, you guys. Let's talk Legend of Zelda.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. Listen up, you hot dogs. We're going to get to Link to the Past in just a second, but I want to give a huge shout out to Analog Brewing here in Edmonton for teaming up with Remember the Game. Analog Brewing is an Edmonton-based brewery that churns out delicious beer. And what's rad about them is they're gaming nerds, just like me and you. All their beer has dope video game referencing names. They have awesome artwork on their cans. If you live in Edmonton, you've probably seen it somewhere. And they deliver as well. They offer next day home delivery, Wednesday through Saturday evening in Edmonton and surrounding areas. It's a 24 can minimum outside of Edmonton, and delivery is free if you spend $40 or more. It's great beer. If you're Albertan, you probably drink anyway, and craft beer is so much better than the big name mass-produced garbage out there. I drink their beer, I support their beer, they support the show, and if you live in or around Edmonton, show them some love. Hit up analogbrewing.ca, and don't forget to mention the podcast in your order, please. That way I can make a couple of bucks too. You're gonna drink over the holidays, so support me, support local, support Analog Brewing. Analogbrewing.ca, mention the podcast in your order. Thanks a lot. Now let's talk video games. All right, so this, as I will have already said in the intro probably numerous times, is the third edition of our Revisited series where we go back and look at the games that we covered back in the early days of the podcast before I knew what I was doing. And this week we are talking one of the greatest video games of all time, for my money, the greatest Zelda game of all time. And joining me via the Batphone here is longtime friend of the show, guest, Patreon supporter, and all-around good guy, my buddy Bradley McCue. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm good. I was gonna say I'm great, but I'm good. I'm good. I'm very good.
I'm good. I mean, we are still living in Plague World, but everything else is good.
Yeah, I'm a hard 8 right now. I'm a hard 8.
Yeah, it's actually, you know what? It's actually been a shockingly good year to be a gamer.
Isn't that the truth, man? Fuck me. And it's so funny because there's like all these killer great new games out this year, and like Cyberpunk is right around the corner, and everyone's like, oh my god, I can't, like PS5 is out, Xbox Series XS is out. Everyone's all giddy and happy, and we're instead going to talk about a Legend of Zelda game from the early 90s, which for my money might be better than all of those other games. Might be.
Link to the Past? Oh, no, it's the best. Yeah, for sure. It's one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, listen, I'm sure Cyberpunk is probably going to be good, and I've loved a lot of great games out of 2020. But if you were like, hey, Adam, you could play any of the games that are coming out in 2020, or you could play Link to the Past, I'm like, I got to go. I got to stick with, maybe it's my nostalgic ties, but I'm like, I got to stick with Link to the Past. I truly feel like this game is the Super Mario World of Zelda. I'm like, this is the perfect Zelda game. It's the perfect Zelda game. I agree.
And as anybody who's listening to the show, if you listen to the show a lot, you're probably familiar with my brother Mark. And from the episodes that he's on, you could probably tell that we grew up in a Zelda household. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's so funny because you Mark has been on the show since actually Mark is the guy I covered Link to the Past with way back on episode 3 of the podcast. That's like over 2 years ago. It's wild. But you have been on me to be like, I want to cover a Zelda game, and I'm like, well, your fucking brother's already taken all of them. And it's
he's already called fucking dibs.
Yeah, he's already taken all of them. So then when I was like, I want to revisit some of the early games, and I was like, Link to the Past I would love that game. I definitely want to revisit this game. And so I messaged you first, and I just was like, hey, we're gonna revisit Link to the Past. I know you're a Zelda, and you were just like, yeah, fucking right. So
when I got that text, I was glowing, dude. I was like, oh hell yes, because I've talked about a lot of series that I like on the show: Castlevania, Mega Man, Paper Mario, but Zelda, it truly is my first love.
Right. And so like the thing about it is like, because I get a little not nervous talking Zelda, but I like the franchise a lot, but I know that I don't have the admiration for it that the diehard fans do. Like I'm lukewarm on a few of the entries. Majora. I'm not even gonna open the Majora's Mask fucking box right now because I don't want to start a fight on this podcast today about that game.
I'll throw fists. I'll throw hands, dude.
The fucking game makes me so mad. But that's not the point. The point is that, like, for my money, and I feel the same way about Mario. Like, it's so funny because I look at Super Mario World as the best Mario game of all time. And then I consider Mario Odyssey to be number 2. And that's the Super Nintendo iteration and the Switch iteration. And I feel the exact same way about Zelda. I'm like, to me, Link to the Past is the best Zelda game ever made, and Breath of the Wild is number 2. Like, it's the Super Nintendo one and then the Nintendo Switch version. So I don't know, is Link to the Past your number? Is it your number 1? You're more of a Zelda fan than me.
Okay, so here's the thing: is that Link to the Past is one of the best games of all time, but it is my second favorite Zelda game. If it wasn't for Wind Waker, this would be the best Zelda game of all time.
So you go Wind Waker 1, Link to the Past 2.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Wind Waker is my fucking shit. It's my favorite Zelda game. But Link to the Past is a close number 2. And while I like Wind Waker more, it's a much bigger game, so it's harder for me to memorize. Yeah. Whereas this game, I've played it. So I play this game usually 2 or 3 times a year because you can plow through it in 5-6 hours, if you know where you're going.
Yeah.
So I have it memorized pretty much every time I play through it. I get all of the secret items and like the cape and all the canes.
Yeah, yeah.
Are the canes? Oh no, I think.
No, there's two rods. There's the ice rod and the fire rod in this one.
Yeah, and I think they're both required. But either way, and I try to get like all of the heart pieces as well. It's just this truly is like a game that this was one of the first games I ever played too, right? So it's just one of those games that's always really resonated with me.
Right.
But oddly enough, and I think Mark told this anecdote when you guys first talked about it, but oddly enough, when we were kids, our parents bought us this game, but they accidentally bought us like the Quebecois version.
Yeah, you did.
French.
So was the game in French, or was it just like the instruction book and stuff was in French?
No, the game was in French. Like all the dialogue was in French.
Jesus.
And so like now, obviously, I'm never gonna play a French copy, like because now it's just on. I'm gonna play it on Switch every time I play it now.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, like when we had the original cartridge, which we don't even have anymore. I have no idea what the hell happened to it. My copy is in English now.
Dude, that has to be not to interrupt you, but that's got to be a common, like everyone, like not everyone, but I bet you 90% of the people listening to our voices right now have no idea where their original versions of games are. Either they sold them to somebody or their parents gave them away or fucking something. And it's like, I know I feel like that with a bunch of my original games, and it breaks my heart as I'm like, I want to know where my fucking, the amount of hours I spent on this game as a child, I want to know where the fuck my cartridge is now.
Yeah, like so here that's the thing that fucks me up is like any game that I used to have that I now don't have that was like either traded in or like somebody has that copy now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody's playing it and they're experiencing Zelda Link to the Past completely in French, but still experiencing it.
Dude, I love that you guys played this game so obsessively as children, not being able to read what was going. Like that's funny to me that you played the French version and just like, well, this is fine. It's so good that we don't care. We'll play it in French. We don't give a shit.
Yeah, it was so good that we didn't need the hints.
Right.
We didn't need the hints. We fucking were able to figure it out. I'm sure it took us a very, very long time. I barely remember. I was super young, but we did end up beating it. Like, we got to Ganon, like from the French dialogue that was given to us.
I love it.
So,
well, that's...
yeah. So like,
go ahead.
The one part where the guy is like, go back in time and dig up the ocarina. I just think back to that and I'm like, how in God's name did we figure that out?
Especially like pre-internet, where you couldn't just Google a walkthrough or something like that, right? Like, I remember,
exactly.
dude, okay, there's two things you brought up that I wanted to touch on. Number one, you mentioned that you could beat this game in 5 or 6 hours. And it's so funny to me because, like, I remember playing this game as a kid, and I played this game for fucking months and months and months and months. And it's like, and I do remember beating it, but there's no way I beat it in 5 or 6 hours. But now, yeah, like, I replayed it on my Switch when it got added to Switch Online. And yeah, I probably beat it in, I bet you my playtime is 5.5 hours maybe. And I just was like, and I know that now I know where everything is and I know where to go. And if I didn't, I could Google it and stuff like that. But it's just like, I don't know. It's like when you're a kid, it's like when you're a kid and you look at pro athletes and they just seem larger than life. These huge, almost superhero sized people that you're like, wow. Yeah. And I feel the same way about the video games that I played as a kid, where I'm like, these were like these big, giant, crazy adventures. And now it's like, dude, if I bought this game now listen, this game's fucking phenomenal. But if I paid like $80 for this game now and then beat it in 6 hours, I would be like, that was great, but what the fuck? Do you know what I mean?
That was kind of like, and I don't mean to derail, but that's like kind of how I felt about Link Between Worlds, which I thought was really great. And like, but I beat it so fast and I was like, this is 2013 and this game just came out. I paid full price for it and I beat it in 5 hours. That's insanity.
Yeah. It just seems so, and even that, like, and that's a different discussion for a different day about how, for better or worse, a lot of gamers, myself included, kind of relate length to value now. And I feel like that's kind of like, on one hand, yeah, like if I beat a game in 5 hours that I paid full price for, I'm like, well, what the fuck? I got kind of ripped off. But at the same time, like, I kind of have a respect for games that are less than like 15 hours long, because I'm like, my time is valuable and I can't play only 80-hour fucking ginormous RPGs. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes there's something to be said for a game that I can beat in a weekend and be like, fucking rights, that was fun. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so it's, I don't know, I can see both sides of that.
One of the games that always comes to my mind when I think about this is Portal. And Portal is like Link to the Past, where it's like the game is so fucking phenomenal that you don't give a shit how short it is.
Right.
Because like you're like I can plow through Portal in under an hour now.
Right.
I can do it in under an hour. And at the end of every time I play Portal, I'm like, God damn, that was one of the fucking best games I've ever played.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, like, and again, I haven't paid for this. I have it on my Super Nintendo Classic. I have it on my Nintendo Switch. Like, Link to the Past is fucking everywhere. But every time I play it, I'm like, I don't even care how short it is. Like, just it's comfort food to me. Like, this game is just like Super Mario World. It's just straight up comfort food.
Absolutely.
And then there was another thing that you brought up, and now I can't remember the point I wanted to make about it. I'm sure it'll come back to me. So anyway, Link to the Past. If you guys, I guess if by fluke you've never played this game, and I can't imagine there are too many people listening to this podcast that have not played this game. There's got to be a couple, but I can't imagine there's many.
It's one of the most iconic video games ever.
It really is. Like, I think I have like a major hard-on for the Super Nintendo, and anyone that listens to this podcast regularly knows that. And to me, the two games that are primarily responsible for that, there's three games, and it's Super Mario World, it's this game, and it's actually Mega Man X. And the reason for that is those three games just look like their NES counterparts fucking exploded. You know what I mean? Like, the gameplay is, they don't rely on gimmicks yet. They're not 3D. They don't need fucking crazy cameras and all these big open, you know what I mean? It's just, we just took a really fun video game and we were just able to make it better. And when you compare the original NES first ever Zelda game to Link to the Past, they're the same game in a lot of ways. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you walk around this big open world, you kind of figure out where to go. It's a lot of puzzle solving and stuff. But it just looks like, I'm looking at still images of this game right now, and I'm like, I don't give a shit what anybody says. This game is a primary example of why I say that the Super Nintendo was the absolute golden era of video games. Because I'm like, this game will never not look good. Never.
Oh, I completely agree, and actually, here's why. And it's something that I thought about a few days ago when I was thinking about this game. Um, the Super Nintendo was the last era of 2D, which means as far as 2D gaming goes, it looked as good as it possibly could.
Agreed. Yeah.
And 3D gaming, because of how 3D gaming works and how surfaces work and areas, they'll never get to the point where they're going to look the absolute best they can possibly look.
No, and I agree with that 100%. Yeah, 3D gaming is always going to look a little bit better. I think I don't know when. I think we will hit a point where 3D video games legitimately look better than real life. Like if maybe we're not already there.
Like a movie.
Yeah, because TVs are so good at making them bright, colorful, and fancy and everything. But I agree with you. And people are still making, look at for an example, the new Super Mario Brothers games. Like people are still making 2-dimensional video games, but I'm like, there's a difference between these games that look like they're CGI and the sprite-based 16-bit era. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's that, and that's what I have just such an affinity and an admiration for, is that sprite-based 16-bit style era of game that you're right, just it peaked. Like the Nintendo 64 didn't do this. Like it kind of started over, but did them in 3D. And like you look at these games, and I'm like, I don't give it, like, because young kids today could play like an NES, and they could play the original Legend of Zelda, for example, and be like, this kind of sucks, and it doesn't look that great, and it's hard, and you don't know where you're supposed to go. And I'd slap them for showing disrespect to vintage video games. But then I'd be like, yeah, of course, right? But then I'd be like, yeah, I could see why maybe someone would look at this and be like, this is kind of ugly. Whereas I'm like, I don't give a shit what anyone says. You could show A Link to the Past to a 10-year-old today, and they would be like, it looks neat. Like if this game had never existed and it was released today as like an indie title, it would be, people would suck its dick all over and be like, this is one of the best looking indie games ever made. Like it looks so beautiful. It looks like a cartoon.
And there would be that conversation of like if this came out now, I think it would spark the conversation of indie titles versus AAA as far as quality goes.
Right. Yeah.
That being said, when this game came out, it was a fucking AAA. This was what AAA games looked like.
Yeah, dude. And like, and you're right. Like this was like triple A. Like we did not get this game for a long time when I was a kid. I remember my friend Matthew that lived across the street owned it, and we borrowed it a few times. And I had actually never really played a Zelda game before this, other than a little bit of Zelda 2 on the NES. That's all I'd played. But I remember borrowing this from my buddy and firing it up. And I mean, we probably brought it up on episode 3 the first time we did it. Everyone brings this up, but it's that moment when you walk out of your house and it's pouring rain and you know you have to go to the castle, and it's just... That's such a fucking, for my money, that is among maybe the top 5 most iconic things in the history of video games ever.
100%. And I totally agree. This game, it gives you like a sense that it's going to be a small scale game to begin. And then you walk out that door and you're like, oh, no. This is gonna be huge.
Yeah. And then
this is gonna be a big fucking deal.
Yeah. And then so I mean, I guess there's gonna be some spoilers, guys. The game is fucking 30 years old, and you all know how Legend of Zelda games work. You got to save Princess Zelda, defeat Ganon, get the Triforce. It's the same fucking thing every time. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. Like when you walk out of the house and it's in the pouring rain, that's iconic. But then to me, the part where Zelda really, like, I feel like that's almost like the pre-show, and then where the game really kicks in is after you beat that initial castle, and then you go into the sanctuary when you escape with Princess Zelda, and then you walk out of the sanctuary into Hyrule Field for the first time, and that fucking classic Zelda music that I'm sure I've already put into the podcast kicks in, and that's when you can open your map for the first time because you have to go find the first Elder or whatever it is with the green amulet. To me, that's the moment. Like, I love the iconic scene where he walks out into the rain, but the first time you bring up I remember being a kid and hearing that music and then opening that map and seeing that fucking huge world, which I know by today's standards doesn't seem so big, but back then, that world seemed so big. And just being like, holy fuck, there's a desert. Over there's a forest. I could climb up into this mountain. What are these woods over here? And it was like, I want to see every inch of this fucking world. Every inch of it.
And I think there's a big difference between like the size of the world in the original Legend of Zelda and the size of the world in this game, because the original Legend of Zelda had a pretty big world that had some stuff in it, but only some stuff.
Yeah.
This game, every screen has something unique from the previous screen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the original Legend of Zelda felt like a very, and I like that game a lot, but it's a very big, kind of empty world. Whereas this game, you're right, they crammed so much into this map, and to me, that's my favorite thing about it. Is like there's literally not one area on this map that you can't go to. Like I have to imagine when they were designing this game, like Shigeru Miyamoto and all them had like a giant fucking sheet of paper or something, like a what are those fucking, what's the paper called that's like a grid?
Like a blueprint?
Yeah, no, like, you know, like the fucking, there's so many people listening to this right now, like, you stupid fuck, you know exactly what it's called. It's like a sheet of paper where like everything is a square. Like it doesn't just have the horizontal lines, it has the vertical lines too. Like grid paper, I guess is what it's called. But like I'm sure that I
think it's just called graph paper.
Graph paper, yes, I think that's it. Yeah. And fuck me, you guys, you don't listen to this show for intelligence, you guys. You listen to this show to hear me talk about video games, you know that. And I have to imagine that they fucking had this entire overworld like drawn out, and then they were just like, okay, well, we don't have anything to do in this 4x4 square quadrant. There's got to be something there. Like they don't waste a single fucking screen in this map. There's not one map screen that's wasted at all.
Well, and what I like so much about this game is that you can tell, and I think this applies to Super Mario World as well, that this was the game that Miyamoto wanted to make. Initially.
Yeah.
This was it. This was the one, and he was like, you know what? There's too many limitations. Let's just make the Legend of Zelda the way it is. And then when the Super Nintendo hardware came out, he was like, oh, I can, and that can even go back to Super Mario World again, in the fact that Yoshi was supposed to be in the original Super Mario Brothers, but he couldn't get it in there.
Right.
And
yes.
So like it's very clear that Miyamoto saw the Super Nintendo and was like, holy shit, I can finally make the games I actually want to make.
Yeah, dude, that's a great point, because that is what this feels like. This game feels like the original Zelda finally reached its potential. I agree with you. Like, that is what it feels like. And what I love about this game, and we haven't even gotten into the Dark World or anything yet, but one of the things I love about this game, and I like this about a lot of Zelda games, is it's got those, Metroidvania has become such an overused term in gaming, but like Zelda is kind of Metroidvania. Like, because there's so many places you can see on this map where you're like, I can't figure out what the fuck I'm like, until you can swim. You can see all these things in the water, but you're like, I can't get to them yet. Do you know what I mean? And once you get the ability to lift up giant rocks, or once you get the ability to do the dash, and then you can dash into the piles of rocks and blow them up, and that kind of stuff. And like, it's, to me, like one of the greatest ingredients in the secret sauce of this game and most Zelda games is every time you go into a castle and you get a new item or a new weapon, it's like, I don't know about you, but like I cannot wait to get back onto the overworld and go fuck around with it in all these different places and see what I can get into now that I couldn't get into before.
And this game, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I totally agree with that. Like the way that you take mental notes when you play this game, you're like, oh, okay, so it looks like I need some sort of new item there, but I don't know what it is yet. I'll come back later. And then as soon as you get that item, it clicks. And this game and Ocarina of Time actually do that probably better than any game in history. Where like you're on the overworld, you see something, you're like, not sure, no idea. But I'm going to take a mental note. That's there. So I'm definitely coming back to that. But then you end up making like 50 mental notes, and you end up forgetting the first 10 mental notes, and then you stumble upon again later, and you're like, oh yeah, fuck, right, this.
Yeah, like the amount of caves that you see that you can't even go in yet, because you're like, I can't get to that right now. Or you can go into the cave, but then you find out that cave must be like the exit of a cave, and you're like, okay, well, there's got to be somewhere else where I could go that would then you find that kind of shit. Like you go into the Lost Woods and you fall into a hole that puts you in a cave, and then you fucking come out of that cave back out on the overworld, and you're like, oh, this is what that fucking cave was. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. I love, you're constantly discovering things. You see heart pieces, and you're like, I have no fucking idea how to get to that heart piece. But you're like, I know it's there. I'll figure out a way to come back to it. Like, it's just, every fucking screen you go into, there's something different. There's a building with a fucking mini game in it, or you fucking can, dude, like my favorite item in the game, at least as far as opening up the world, is probably when you get the flippers and you can swim. Because I'm like, oh God. Because like, I don't know about you, but like, I was swimming into literally every waterfall in the fucking game just to see if maybe I could go into this waterfall. Maybe I can go under this waterfall. And it's worth the time you spend doing it for the 2 waterfalls or whatever it is that you find where you're like, holy fuck, there's something. As soon as it does the loading screen where you go in, like, you're just like, oh my God, there's something else in here. Like it.
And then you have the fairy who's like, throw something in, and you're like, I guess I'm throwing every item I have in here just to check.
Yes, I fucking loved that because you like the first time you find that fairy where she's like, throw something in, and you start throwing shit in, and most stuff she's like, you drop this, and just gives it back.
She's like, watch your shit.
Yeah, but like
this hit me in the head, you asshole.
Yeah, exactly. But it's totally worth it because you're like the 3 things that she's like, yeah, I can upgrade this for you, and you're like, oh my God, I got a new thing. Like
not only that, but like there are certain fairy fountain item upgrades that are necessary to beat the game. Right. Like the silver arrows. Like you can't gloss over the fact that there's silver arrows. If you go into that, like, because I can't imagine, because I don't remember because I was so young, but I can't imagine the frustration of trying to figure out how to beat Ganon the first time ever and not having those silver arrows and being like, what the fuck?
Right.
There's no internet.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the silver arrows, again, spoilers, you guys, but aren't this so? Okay, so because I'm going to go into the 2 different trains of thought at the same time, but are the silver arrows not in that fucking pyramid thing in the Dark World that you can't get into forever?
Yeah, they are, but there's a certain place where you have to buy a mega bomb, and you can only buy one, and you have to bomb that wall with a mega bomb. A regular bomb won't do it, but it doesn't look that different from a regular bomb area. So you're putting bombs there, and you're like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude,
the mega bomb doesn't even become available for sale until right before the Turtle Rock, which is right near the end of the game. So the entire game, you're like, how? I don't know. I'm not even going to fuck with that because I don't know how to do it. And then you stumble into that shop. You have to stumble into that shop that's actually the Dark World equivalent of your own house.
That's right.
And you have to get that thing, and you have to transport it. Because when you transport it, you can't fuck up. It's 500 rupees or something like that. I think it's 500. And you have to transport it all the way there. And if you fuck it up once, the thing explodes.
Yeah, that's right. Dude, I think that's such an ingenious touch. And we'll get into the Dark World now. That's a great way to transition into the Dark World.
For sure.
But I fucking love that every goddamn time you warp into that Dark World, like wherever, like, you know, when it launches you and you start out in the middle, like at the pyramid or whatever, and you see that wall, and you have spent the entire game blowing up walls with these obvious cracks in them, and it's like you try dashing into it, you try throwing bombs into it, and it's like, and it's a fucking tease. It's a tease for like 3/4 of the game where they've taught you to look for these holes, and then you find this obvious hole, and no matter what you do, you can't open it. And then when you finally find that super bomb and you come back and open that hole in the wall, it is the most, it's like getting a sliver out that has been in your fucking hand for this entire game. It's just, and I love that I have zero doubt in my mind it was a conscious decision by them to put that somewhere where it's impossible to not see and just fucking tease you with it for hours. It's such an incredibly smart way to, because you're right, you need those arrows to beat the game, but they also put them in a place where it's like, you're gonna get these. You know what I mean? It's like you're gonna, at some point, your curiosity is gonna be too much, and you're gonna find a way to open this fucking wall up. You have to. I love that.
And I think the Dark World in general is ingenious because you have this giant map that has something on it at every corner, and then they're like, what if to save cartridge space, and we can make the map bigger by having the same map again but with slight differences. And it's like, and I actually I like it from a gameplay perspective too, because I love the idea that you go to the 3 different temples, you fight the 3 different bosses, you get the items from there, you get the pendants, you come there, and you're like, all right, I got the Master Sword, which is supposed to be the most powerful sword in the world, and now I'm going to go fight Aghanim, because that is the main villain of this game, and then I'll beat the game. And then they're like, no.
Yeah.
No. You got no, buddy. You haven't even touched this fucking thing yet.
Yeah, it's so like, I mean, you're right. Just the simple fact that they basically doubled the size of the game just in principle by adding the Dark World is awesome. Yeah. And then the way, like, they really took the time mechanic of Ocarina of Time and the way you can shift back and forth and things change. And they kind of did it with the Super Nintendo, but it's just between the light and dark world. And once you really once you get a hold of the mirror and you start coming up with more ways to find different portals to go into the dark world and then back to the light world and stuff like that, it just adds another aspect of exploration, because now it's like, oh, that heart piece that I saw in the light world that I had no idea how the fuck I'd ever get up on that cliff. Then you realize, oh, I have to go to the dark world, then stand approximately where the cliff is in the light world, and then use my mirror to transport back to the light world. Then I can get this heart piece. And it's like, what a fucking clever, ingenious way to add more puzzles, add more length, add a whole second game basically to this game without having to design a whole nother map. Like, it's so smart, man.
And another thing too about, like, just back on the topic of what you were just saying about how smart it is that the way that the light world and the dark world immediately affect each other, so you can do something in the light world, go to the dark world, and something has been affected there, that I genuinely believe in 1991 was the most advanced video game mechanic in history.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
At that time, that was the most insane fucking thing, that you could dig a hole in the light world and then you go to the dark world and there's something that you can fall into in that exact spot. Now, who the fuck came up with that?
Yeah.
Give him a raise. Give him some money.
Dude, I can't even imagine how complicated it must have been, because it's one thing to design the overworld and then have it play between the light and the dark worlds and the way they play off each other, but some of these caves and some of the, especially up in Death, if I have one minor criticism of this game, it's that in the dark world in particular, I fucking hate going up into that mountain. I just fucking trying to traverse all these goddamn caves because I want to get everything. And I still, to this day, after probably beating this game 20 times, can't keep track of which caves go where in which world, in the dark and the light. And it's just like, I can't even fathom how complex it must have. And obviously today with Skyrim and shit like that, you look at this and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? But back in 1992, I have to imagine they had that initial grid paper map of the light world, and then I just always imagined they had a plastic one they'd put over top that was the dark world, and they were just all these different notes and fucking post-its everywhere saying well, this cave could go from the light to the dark, but only with the mirror and the hook shot. There's so much meat on the bone in this game if you want to get everything. If you just want to run through it and beat it, you're right, it's a piece of cake. But to get everything, which is the way you should play this game, it's like a never-ending I love the exploration in this game so much, and usually I get frustrated with exploration, but in this game I just want to keep exploring. And every time you get a new item, now not only do you want to see how that item works in the light world, but now it's well, what the fuck could I do with this in the dark world? Once I get a hold of the Pegasus boots, and I guess you get those before, but anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. As you get more items, you're well, what the fuck can I do with this in that world at this area? And then you're trying to remember how the fuck to even get to that area to begin with, because you can't just go into the dark world anytime you want. You have to find a portal to take you there.
Yeah, but you can go back to the light world at any time, which is kind of like a neat thing too, because you can actually use that to there'll be certain spots in the dark world that are on the ground, but the light world equivalent has a ledge there, so you go and stand there and you go back into the light world and suddenly you're on this ledge that you weren't supposed to be able to get up onto.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude. And actually, because you brought it up earlier, I fucking love the way, you know how you said you dig a hole in the light world and it affect the dark world? I love when you go to the dark world and people from the light world have transformed into, and what is it that the dark world shows you who you truly are in whatever it makes you into, or something like that?
It's something like that, but everybody is turned into an animal of some sort.
Yeah, I love that you see these people from the light world and what they've become in the dark world. There's they're, again, I gotta keep saying it. I'm not gonna keep saying it. It's fucking spoilers. Just fucking live with it. The way you can upgrade the Master Sword a couple of times, and the first way is you got to find the that iron worker or the blacksmith's partner.
Yeah, and he's a frog.
In the dark world. So you have to go get him in the dark world as a frog, lure him back to the house, then transform him, and that, you know what I mean? And then they'll upgrade your sword. That's such a clever little thing. My favorite part of the dark world is the village. And the way the village is just a goddamn cesspool in the dark world. But it's
it's post-apocalyptic almost.
Yeah, but it's so nice and, well, I mean, it's kind of nice and cheerful in the light world, except the guards hate you and stuff like that. But I fucking such an ingenious mechanic, man.
And that's another thing I love so much about this game is that this is probably the first time, you might say Zelda 2, but I would say this is the first time that Zelda really focused on a story aspect, and almost like a lore aspect to the game.
Yeah.
Because all of the characters are very unique. And one thing that I really, really love about this game is that there's all of the people who are in the Dark World, they're the true inner versions of themselves, are people who came to the Dark World in search of power. And there's that the flute guy who came to the Dark World in search of power. And when you talk to him, he's been so deformed that he actually turns into like a tree because his heart is so like fucked up and filled with like regret and anger and frustration that he can't function anymore, and he dies. Like it's a pretty intense game as far as story goes, and there is a lot to it. Like if you're going to play this game, before you press that start button, make sure you wait for the little intro video that tells you everything, or else you're not going to know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you could play it. I mean, you could play it in a different language and then not know what's going on.
Yeah.
But like
as I have.
But no, I agree with you. Yeah, like the Super Nintendo was great for really starting to tell story. And like obviously to me the big example of the Super Nintendo improving on telling stories is like the RPGs. You know,
like
from
Final
the
Fantasy IV.
Right, yeah, of course. But yeah, I agree with you. Like there really is a great story here about like people going from this one world to this other world in search of power, and then this other world fucking them up. And then like when Link first goes into the Dark World, he becomes a bunny. And then it turns out that he's like, it's because he's a really good person, and so he's turns into like a nice person.
His intentions of going into the Dark World aren't malice.
Yeah, dude. There's the two people when you first go to the Dark World, and one is like a rock or a ball or something, and the other one's like a bully just kicking them around.
Yeah,
and then when they realize that you can stay in your human form because you have that, it's the mirror, I think, is what does it.
No, it's the Moon Pearl.
Right, the Moon Pearl, and that's the mirror is what transports you. And then so then you don't transform anymore, and they're all like, "What the fuck?" But they're stuck in these like horrible forms in it. Yeah, you're right. Like there really is an interesting story to this game. It's not certainly not the most complex story ever, but there really is a story there, which makes it a lot of fun.
But I'd like to talk about the thing that I think sets this game aside as being a fucking masterpiece. And it's going to sound weird, but I promise you, this is absolutely my favorite thing about Link to the Past. The amount of Zelda staple items that were introduced in this game is fucking unbelievable.
That's true. Including the greatest item, not only in Zelda, but the greatest item in the history of video games.
I hope you say the right thing.
It better be the hookshot.
Absolutely, it fucking is.
Fucking right. I love, like, literally any video game where I can get a hook shot, I get so excited, and I'm like, well, I'm never unequipping this unless I absolutely have to, because the hook shot is like, dude, like, I don't know how you are, like, the boomerang becomes useless. I never use my bow and arrow. I hardly use my sword unless I have to. I'm all about the hook shot once I get it.
That's why I think, and like this is a little off topic, but that's why I think the Spider-Man games on PS4 are so good, because it's a game where you just use a hook shot.
That's true. Spider-Man's main power is a hook shot, an infinite hook shot.
Essentially.
And I never thought of that until you said it, but you're right. This is the first Zelda game to introduce the hook shot. And it's just so good, man.
Well, it's the first Zelda game to have the flippers, the Pegasus boots, I think the first one had bow and arrow and boomerang, I think.
Yeah, it did, yeah. I can't remember.
It's been a while since I played the first one.
I can't remember if the early games had the bottles, but
no bottles. You could buy potions.
Right. That's right.
But they were consumables. As soon as you drank the potion, it was gone.
I'm a huge fan of the bottle mechanic and the way that, like, fairies. First of all, you don't even have to get them. Or I think you have to get one, maybe. But you basically, like, the four of them are you know, some of them are actually a little harder to find than others. But if you get all four, you can fill them with different variants of potions. You can fill them with fairies. You can fill them with, I think you can put bees in them. And then I don't know what that does because I never put a bee in it. You can put milk in it.
I think you release it on enemies.
Yeah, it's stupid. That's a waste of time. You have a hook shot. You don't need a bee.
Yeah.
But I love the fucking bottle mechanic in this game. And you're right, like the Pegasus boots are rad. Obviously the hook shot kicks all kinds of ass. One item that I wish was in this game that isn't is the feather from Link's Awakening.
Yeah, you know what? I was actually thinking that as well, because that is probably one of my favorite items from that game.
Yeah.
Which of course also is a masterpiece.
Yeah, Link's Awakening's fucking awesome. I agree.
Yeah, especially the fucking Switch version. Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Holy fucking rights.
Dude, that that Switch version took that game from a check minus to a check plus.
Yeah, it's fucking it's immaculate. I desperately want to see this game remade in that style, like so bad. I don't
because this is actually an argument that I get into all the time with my brother when we're talking about games we think are the best looking video games of all time, and he always says Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, yes, that is a great looking game. But for me, it's the Switch version of Link's Awakening. It's so appealing to look at all times.
Yeah, it looks like a cartoon, like a foggy cartoon. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Exactly. So if you make that again, but with Link to the Past, dude, you could sell that for $120. I pay it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would pay that much, but yeah, I'd be all over it. And they, you know what? Knowing Nintendo, they fucking might too. But
to be honest, I kind of hope they do.
I think that remake is coming. I really do. Because I've read, sorry guys, we'll get back to Link to the Past in a minute, but I've read that Link Between Worlds, the sequel from the DS, the 3DS, originally started out as a concept of a remake of this game. And then they were like, let's just make it into a different game. And it's fucking, I love it too.
There it is though. There it is. That's how they do it. Remake Links to the Past and bundle it with Link Between Worlds for the Switch. $80 for both those games. And you don't even have to remaster Link Between Worlds. I think it looks fine. Just get it on my phone. That is the one thing I really don't like about like the modern era with the 3DS is like port these games to the Switch.
Yeah,
find a way.
Yeah, I agree
because
with that.
I don't want to play my 3DS anymore, which sounds shitty, but I just don't. It's in storage upstairs. I don't want to have to go and get it.
Yeah.
I just want to play my shit on the Switch. I'll pay you again.
Yeah, I agree. Dude, yeah, me too. Fucking no question. So now, and this might be a polarizing thing, but like, I'm not criticizing them, but if I have, like, my least favorite part of playing Link to the Past is like, it's not that I don't like the dungeons, but I don't want to do them. I want to be on the overworld. Like, that's where I have fun. And when I go into the dungeons, there are times where I'm just like, I don't want to fucking do this stupid. Because some of the dungeons are great. They're great. They're well designed. They're fun. Some of them just irritate the fuck out of me, where it's just backtrack. I
think in particular, the Ice Temple in this game is really bad. Where you have to make sure that when you come down to the bottom level that the switches are switched a certain way, and if they're not, you have to go back around all the way up through the fucking all the way up and then back around through the temple again. And you absolutely have to do that at least once, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you do.
And it's obnoxious to have to redo it. I do agree with that. But I do think that the dungeons are complemented with some of the franchise's best boss fights.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And I don't even think the dungeons are bad per se. It's just, like, I feel like on the overworld, they were really ambitious, but they had everything they needed to make the overworld work, between traveling between the worlds and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, like, there's a couple of the dungeons with their very primitive map system that they have and stuff like that, where they're certainly not unbeatable, but it does hit a point. There's a couple of instances where you're just like, fuck me. Like, what? How does this fucking switch need to, like, it's all it is one fucking switch somewhere that like you said, I got to backtrack through this whole, you're basically guessing. Like, you get to the switch and you're like, I have a 50-50 shot at getting this right. And if you get it wrong, now you've got to backtrack through this fucking thing, find the switch, hit it again, make sure nobody else hits it, and then climb all the way back up. And there's a couple instances where, like, that ice fucking fortress, man, every time I replay this game, I dread that. Like, when I get to it, I'm like, okay, let's just fucking spend 45 minutes or whatever the fuck it's going to take me to get through this stupid goddamn fortress so that it's over. Now, there's two great things about the fortresses and the dungeons that kind of neutralize that. One, as you mentioned, is the killer bosses, because I think most of the bosses in this game fucking own. They're awesome. And the other thing is the excitement of knowing you're going to get a new item in every fortress, but then the occasional disappointment when the item sucks. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're like, oh, you got a better shield. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, I wanted something that would help me get somewhere else, not this crappy fucking shield.
And that mirror shield that you get is so big that it almost blocks your entire character.
I hate it. I fucking hate it. That giant golden shield. You need it for like a couple of things to deflect like the laser eyeballs and stuff like that. But it's like I wish you could like switch between them, like equip different gear, and I can only use it when I wanted to. Because I fucking hate that giant obnoxious fucking shield so much. I hate it.
One other thing I'll add about that I really like about the dungeons in this game, because I agree there's some that aren't that great, and maybe we'll go through some of them in a minute or two here. But one thing I do want to add is that I like that in this game, especially comparatively to the first Legend of Zelda, that the dungeons are all kind of themed. And I think they kind of ran away with that idea a little bit, almost too much. And the Ice Palace is a great example of them just kind of being so excited about making an ice-themed palace that they kind of made it not fun to play.
Yeah.
But like I love that there's like even like the urban themed one where you're underneath the town. And like there's all like the dungeons underneath, like inside the statue. Yeah. The forest one might be my favorite one because it's not just one streamlined dungeon. It's like 3 different areas that you kind of have to jump between. And that one can be kind of tough too and sort of backtracky as well. But I do love the concept of it so much. And then you have to find the item to get into the third part of the temple because you have to burn a part of the forest down.
Yeah, I'm hit and miss on that temple because I love the idea that you have to basically come, like the temple is under the Lost Woods in the Dark World, and then you come back up to the woods and you have to kind of hike through the forest to find another entrance into a different part of that. I like the concept, but every time I replay this game, I get lost on that fucking temple every goddamn time, and it does after a while. It slowly starts to grade at you where you go from like, this is really fun to just being like, motherfuck, where do I go? Like fucking,
I can't, there's no fucking way I'm in this room again.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I agree with you. I think the concept of it is rad. For my money, the standout moment in any temple in this game is that one that's under the village, in the Dark World. And particularly the way that in the Light World, they tease that this building used to be a hideout for a group of bandits or something.
Yeah.
And then in the Dark World, you find out that the boss in this castle is like the leader of those bandits. And it turns out he hates light, which is why he's always in the basement. And so you have to go upstairs, blow a hole in the wall where the sun is shining in the floor, then come downstairs. And now that light is shining onto the bad guy. And now you can fight him. Like, that's really, really clever stuff, man.
It's really clever. And like, I know how to do it now, but like when I was a kid, like that fucked me up. Like I kept trying to leave because I'm like, I got the girl I saved from the dungeon, but I leave the dungeon and she doesn't follow me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you know.
Oh Christ.
So you have to really, really put your head together. And I think I had Nintendo Power when I played this game. Like I'm pretty sure I had Nintendo Power to help me out a couple of times.
Right. Oh yeah, dude. I used to, when I was a kid, we used to go to the library and there was a book at the library that was like a guide to this game, and I would just take it out over and over and over. And use it to help me find everything, and just because like it's crazy. Like I like that when you open up your inventory map, like there's clearly, I don't remember how many it is, 20 slots or 24 slots or something like for every item, and it's so obvious how many items you're supposed to have. And so you get near the end of the game and you have 2 empty slots left because you could totally beat this game without getting everything. And you get to the end of the game and maybe you have 2 empty slots left, and you're like, well, what the fuck? Like I feel like I've explored everywhere. Where the fuck did I miss? And then you realize it's one cave in the bottom right corner of the map that you have to get through the Dark World, blow it up in the Light World, go back into it through the dark. Like I never would have found this. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that's great. I think it's very well done. I love it.
Yeah, it should make you have to think a little bit. One thing I will say about this game that I'm not huge on, and this is going to be a really weird pick. I don't love the port on Game Boy Advance. And here's the thing. It's an almost identical port. It is the game. It's Link to the Past. But they added in the Link voice from Ocarina of Time, and I don't think they needed to. I don't think it needed to be there.
It's really? I never played that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, like every time you swing your sword in the Game Boy Advance version, it goes, yeah. And it's like, didn't need it. I don't know if we need this.
No, I don't like that. I like the idea of him being the silent protagonist. I like that better. I don't need his voice. I've never cared for his voice in any game. It's not for me.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, we can sit here and we can make like these minor picks about a game that is truly stood the test of time, still plays just as good today as it did back then.
Sure.
And it's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, if our biggest criticism is that the Ice Fortress is hard and his voice in the Game Boy or in a port of it is shitty, then that shows you just how fucking good this game is. Like,
yeah, it truly is one of the finest crafted video games of all time. And like the impact that this game has had on not only the Zelda series, but anything. Like you look at the way that this impacted, like, quote unquote, the Zelda formula, but then you look at all the different games that have borrowed inspiration from the Zelda formula, like Darksiders or hell, even like Assassin's Creed, like there's borrowed elements there, right?
Yep. Yeah. Dude, I've said before that, like, I always felt the very first Zelda, the first NES Zelda, was the first open world game where you could kind of just explore a world and do whatever you want. And this one just did that, like, so much better. What I wouldn't get, if I could choose right now where I could have my brain wiped out and I could either play Super Mario World again for the first time or I could play this again for the first time, I would probably do this. Because
that's so crazy you said that, because I was literally, when you were saying that, I was about to say the exact same thing.
Is that right? Yeah, because it's just that big.
I wanna race my brain and replay this game from scratch again.
The sense of like the thrill of fucking figuring out a puzzle on the overworld or going into an area for the first time, or once, like, it's one thing when you're up on Death Mountain and then you realize you can go back and forth between the light and dark world on Death Mountain, but once you get the ability to just do it wherever you want, every time you find a new portal that can take you into the dark world, you're like, holy fuck, I've never been in this area of the map in the dark world. Now I have to re-explore this whole thing again. Like, I would love to be able to do that again for the first time. Like, fuck me. Yeah. Because it's just it's nonstop surprises, just everywhere you go. And then, like you said, I'll be honest with you, like, as much as I'm hit or miss on the dungeons, I love opening the big treasure chest in each dungeon, although occasionally it's very sad and heartbreaking when the item sucks.
Here's a purple shirt, and you're like, oh.
Isn't that where you get the better boomerang in one of them? You just, or is that you throw into the water?
I think you throw into the water for the better boomerang.
Okay. But there is a few items where you're just like, oh, fucking... Yeah, you're right. Like, one of them, like, here, this tunic will protect you from taking damage more. And I was like, oh, thanks. Like, this will help me get somewhere.
Well, and there's also the thing about this game that's so much different from, like Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker and Twilight Princess is that you can sometimes miss an item in the dungeons.
Yeah, you can. Like the big treasure chests.
Yeah. And they're all necessary. And, well, maybe not the tunic. Like, if you're really good at the game, maybe the tunic's not necessary. But there is one that's really necessary, that's really easy to miss. And it's the fucking moon pearl in the third dungeon. You can straight up not even know that it's there, fight the boss, beat the boss, get the thing, go back to the fucking thing, only to find out that there's another fucking thing that you didn't get.
No, I never do that. But I've also I obsess over those giant treasure chests. Like, I was more interested in that than I was in fighting the boss. I was like, the fucking these fucking princesses can save themselves. I want a better hook shot. Like, I was like, that was always I was like, that's, you know what I mean? But I did not know that. That's fucked. So yeah, you would have to go back just to fucking get that.
Well, and what's cool about this game is it's very clear that Miyamoto had like a vision for future games, like especially Ocarina of Time, because this game actually talks about a lot of the events that take place in Ocarina of Time, including talking about the King of Gerudo, Ganondorf, who doesn't appear in a game till 5 years after this game came out.
Right. Yeah.
So he already knew he already knew he wanted to fuck with a human version of Ganon.
Dude, this game's kind of funny because, like, a lot of people, like, I admire the whole the Legend of Zelda universe and the lore and the timeline, but I also am one of the many, many people that are like, I have no fucking idea where, like, how it all, you know what I mean? Like, all I know is that the Triforce is part of all these games and the Master Sword is part of all these games, and Link is not the same person but the same spirit or what, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I get the concept and the intertwining of all of them and stuff like that, but this was the game that kind of started that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's in a little, I think, like, if we're looking at, like, the plot line of these games, it's a little inconsistent. I actually just played through Minish Cap, and they're like, you unlock the Light Force, aka the Triforce, which they call the Light Force in that game for some reason, by getting the Four Sword. And it's like, well, usually I have to get the Master Sword. What's the difference between the Master Sword and the Four? Is it the same sword? Are they the same?
Right.
Are they different? Like, I don't understand. It's very inconsistent. So a lot of people are like, I like it. Even just today, I was telling a friend about Age of Calamity, the new Hyrule Warriors game. And I was like, if you're looking for a story, you might not, it's like the story's not that great in this game. And he was like, I am looking for story. And I'm like, but why in a Zelda game is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. I get that there is a bit like this kind of kicked off like the big story and lore of Zelda, but like I don't really care. Like I get why I'm doing what I'm doing and stuff like that, but I'm like it's the same way I feel about Mario. I'm like I just want to play the game. Like I don't care about I get it. I got to save. Just tell me who am I saving and what do I need to save them and I'm good. Do you know what I mean?
I have you ever read the Hyrule Historia?
No.
So it's a great book. I actually have it. There's like 3 versions of it. There's the Hyrule Hyrule Historia, which is the history of Zelda, an encyclopedia which has all like the different characters and weapons and stuff. And then there's an art book, and the art book is fucking phenomenal. And they're huge. These huge, beautiful books, like hardcover books made by Dark Horse Comics. But Hyrule Historia, I've read through it a few times, and it's very clear that someone at Nintendo was just full of shit, and they were just like, oh, they want to write a history book about our games, so let's just make some shit up.
Right. Yeah.
Let's just staple this game to this game, even though we don't have to.
Sometimes I feel like The Legend of Zelda is Nintendo's Metal Gear Solid, because they're just like, no, we can make these stories all kind of, we'll just tape them, put a little glue there. They'll fit. They'll all work together. Well, and it's like, why can't, I would prefer they're all just separate. I don't want to know how they all play together. That's just me. Me.
Well, Nintendo are such assholes that they're like, we're going to create this Hyrule Historia with a timeline, and we're going to create an actual canonical Zelda timeline. And then they're like, here's Breath of the Wild. And we're like, where's that fit in the timeline? And they're like, we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No fucking. We don't know.
So on one, it's so funny because I'm thinking about that as we're talking about this, and like on one hand, this game kind of kicked off the whole insanity of this fucking timeline people still can't figure out. But on the other hand, I'm like, I was thinking about it, I'm like, this game saved that franchise, because I know that Zelda 2 is a hot button. Some people like Zelda 2 and some people don't. I get it. But it's like the original Zelda is groundbreaking and it's an iconic, Hall of Fame video game. Zelda 2 turned a lot of people off because they tried to do different things and it didn't work. And like I think they could have gotten away from doing these games in the future, and people would have just been like, yeah, the first one was good, the second one sucked. And it would have been, and I'm just pulling a fucking franchise out of my ass here, it could have been the fucking Blaster Master, you know what I mean? Like of NES, and that just would have been it. But then when they released Link to the Past, and they did such a phenomenal job of it, and they brought it back to like, like clearly they were all like, okay, people didn't really care for the second one. Let's go back to the first one and just make that better. And this game, like to me, this game saved that franchise and took it from a one-off on the NES with a weird sequel to like arguably their biggest franchise in their library. And that's an incredibly arguable point. But the point, you know what I'm saying though, is like, like this game saved Zelda. Like without this game, we would not have Zelda games today.
I think that releasing this game as they did, like releasing this game as is, was basically Nintendo's way of saying, like, look, we have all these IPs, all these different stuff, and I know you guys didn't like the last one, but we're fucking confident in this product.
Yeah.
We are confident in this franchise, and we have more plans for this.
Like, I would legitimately be curious to know if this wasn't a Shigeru Miyamoto game, like if this was just fucking Joe Blow's franchise, at fucking Konami or something, like would we have ever seen another one? Do you know what I mean? Or if they would have just been like, all right, well, we had a good one, we fucked up the second one, let's just go do something else. And instead, all you did was kick off, like to me, that's why, like to me, outside of the original Legend of Zelda game, this is probably the most important game in the franchise, because this game salvaged the franchise.
I agree with that. I think there could be an argument made for Ocarina of Time being quite important as well.
Yeah.
But I'd say Link to the Past is more important for sure.
Fucking Ocarina of Time, that game just that's a whole different discussion as well.
I like Ocarina of Time, but every time I play it, I like it less.
Yeah, exactly. That said, I have zero doubt in my mind we're gonna get a Zelda 3D All-Stars package when their 35th anniversary hits next year, at least with Ocarina and Majora's Mask. And I'll buy it, and I'll play them because I'm a simp.
I think they'll do what they did this year. You know how like they made like the 3D All-Stars with 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy.
Yeah.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to make a package that comes. I think they're going to make 2 packages. I genuinely believe this. They're going to make one package that comes with Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker, and then they're going to make an additional pack that comes with Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword.
Yeah, you might be right. People would buy them.
I'm right.
People want these fucking games. People will buy them. I'd buy it. Like, and like I consider myself like a fair weather, middle of the road Zelda fan, and I'd fucking buy those. Like, I'm not stupid enough to ignore the legacy of this franchise.
I would buy all 5 of those games and play the 4 good ones.
You'd skip Majora's Mask?
No, I'd skip Skyward Sword. Majora's Mask is a fucking masterpiece.
We'll cover that another day. Okay, we've been going for almost an hour, but before we score this thing and wrap it up, we had talked about the bosses, and I just wanted to quickly. So I'll give you a chance to shout out my favorite boss in this game is probably that giant lizard chameleon thing with the metal mask on, and you've got to chip away at its mask until it breaks. Then you can shoot it in the ruby in its head.
Isn't that King Dodongo?
I have no idea. Yeah, that would make sense that it is. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think it's King Dodongo.
That's probably my favorite, just because I love the idea that like I have this magic hammer and I got to chip away at this fucking cast iron mask on his face, and then once it breaks, then I could shoot him in the forehead. I really like that.
That's another item. That's another item that was introduced in this game, the magic hammer.
I don't understand what's magic about it. It's just a hammer. Like there's
no hammer you can hit.
But anyway.
You can hit shit with it.
Yeah,
like you can't do with a regular hammer.
Don't call it magic. Just call it the hammer. Call it the hammer of heroes or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's my favorite. So have you got a favorite boss that sticks out?
My favorite, yeah, I do. And this is one that I often think about because I just find that it's really fun. I really like, oh God, I don't know what his name is, but he's like the big cotton candy guy that has all the little things, and you have to hook shot the little things and slice them. Yeah. And then eventually, once he's naked, he just goes on the floor and just starts he's like a giant eyeball that just starts like trying to viciously attack you.
Yes. Dude, they do a great job of like in the dungeons where you pick up a new item, they do a great job of working that item into the boss fight. Absolutely. And I really like that. Quick shout out to go ahead.
Another one of my favorites though, like that I just want to shout out to is that I love the Turtle Rock boss fight because you need to have the fire and ice rod. Now the fire rod you've got for sure. The ice rod you maybe missed.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you maybe missed the ice rod. So like I'm sure a lot of kids were playing that boss fight and being like, what the fuck? How the fuck do you do this?
Yeah, because it was like you had to use the fire rod on the ice side and the ice rod on the fire side.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I like that. That's clever. Fuck yeah. I forgot about that boss. I like that boss too. I wanted to shout out my least favorite boss in the game, which is the giant goddamned rattlesnake thing that you have to fight on the platform where he bumps into you, and he doesn't even kill you. He just bumps into you and knocks you off, and then you've got to hike up and start the fight again. That fucking fight.
You have to fight him twice.
Oh, and there's no. Twice. It's like to me it's luck because it's just so randomly generated the way he just bounces around the screen, and it just makes me so. I hate that fucking boss because he's not hard in the sense he's gonna kill you. He's hard in the sense of the fact that you never know which way he's gonna. There's no pattern. You just have to hope that your spin thing, because that's all I do is I charge up my spin and then wait for him to come near and then start spinning and hope that it fucking hits him. I hate him.
I hate the desert boss fight. That's the 3 worms that that burrow underneath the ground, and every time they come up, they throw rocks in every direction.
Yeah.
I hate that, and it's the second boss. Like I remember that I've probably died on that boss more than Ganon.
Dude, Ganon's a bitch in this game. I love that you could beat him. True. You could beat him with the net. I never knew that, but you could beat him with the bug catching net.
Dude, you know what? I'm gonna do it next time, I think.
I was like, you fucking pussy. You're supposed to be this all-encompassing demon that's gonna take over the world, but my little fairy net that some stupid kid gave me can beat you. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, some kid who's sick in his house just.
Oh yeah, he was sick. Like, yeah,
I'm too sick to catch bugs, so I guess I'll never be well again. Yeah, like the fact that he gives you that bug net because it's his favorite hobby and he's too sick to do it means that kid's got something terminal.
Yeah.
Which is fuck.
I like to imagine that he was allergic to bees. And the bees were stinging him, and he's like, I better stop doing this now. This isn't for me. Yeah. Oh yeah, fuck. Also, sorry, guys. Like, we're going to end this thing soon. But also, shout out to, if you've ever played this game and you've never made all the chickens attack you, then you're not playing this game right.
No.
Like, that's my favorite thing, is to just hammer away. My brother and I would do that for hours as kids and just laugh like idiots. That we would just fucking go to the village and beat up this one poor defenseless chicken, and then eventually just get the swarm of chickens to come after us. It's the funniest shit.
One thing I find so interesting about this game is at the end of the game, after the credits, they tell you how many times you died.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely willing to ruin a perfect run to die once from the chickens.
Yeah, it's the greatest thing in the world. And I love, because I love animals in real life, and I love the fact that they were like, no, you can't just abuse animals in our fucking game. They'll fight back. But it's just the idea that all it is a ton of chicken. I fucking love it. I love this fucking game so much.
Dude, it's in my opinion, this is. I know that you don't give perfect ratings, but I'm gonna throw one out there.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know what, I don't know what to score this game. Okay, it came out in 1992, so we'll score it out of 1992. So you're giving it 1992 out of 1992.
Dude, I'm giving it 1992 out of 1992. I fucking love this game.
I gotta give it. You guys know it gets the Super Mario World tax, so I got to take one off. And then I'll be honest with you, I'm taking a couple off for that ice dungeon because I fucking hate that ice dungeon. But even still, I'd be like a 1985 out of 1992. It's like a 9.9999 out of 10. It's again, for my, and I know it's a hot take, but this is my favorite game in the franchise. I like it better than Breath of the Wild. I like it better than the sequel. I like it better than Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, all those. To me, this is it's the Super Mario World of Zelda. I'll never get bored of playing this game ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
And again, just for me, this game is so close to being my favorite Zelda game. Wind Waker has a tiny advantage over it. But you also got to remember, I don't want to be this guy, but I'm a lot younger than you are. And Wind Waker came out when I was 10.
Right.
Wind Waker came out when I was 10, and we got it first day, and we didn't usually do that. But we had to get Wind Waker on the first day, and it's just a game that really resonates with me. But Link to the Past is a game I've probably played through Link to the Past more than any game in history. Maybe the first Metal Gear Solid being the only exception, but even then it would be close.
Yeah. For what it's worth, and I'll eventually rank I gotta play. There's a couple Zelda games I've missed, and then I'll do a ranking episode. But Minish Cap is one. Wind Waker's in my top 5. I love Wind Waker. I love the art style. For my money, the art style in Wind Waker alone makes it a top 5. It looks so good.
I'm gonna try to entice you by telling you something I told my brother. Minish Cap is better than Ocarina of Time. I 100% believe that.
Yeah, but fucking Echo the Dolphin is better than Ocarina. No, I'm kidding. Calm down. Although I am lukewarm. Ocarina of Time is not a top 5 Zelda game for me. I don't like it.
Fucking what, man?
I don't like it. I don't like it.
I agree. Ocarina of Time is very, very good in my opinion, but it does lose points more and more. One thing that really pisses me off about I promise I won't go on a huge tangent here, but one thing that pisses me off about Ocarina of Time is that most of the mechanics are just standing there waiting for the enemy to attack so you can counter.
Yeah.
And it's annoying.
Yeah. The combat in this game in Link to the Past is ridiculously basic, but it works. I don't need anything else other than that. It works just fine. My shield works the way I want it to. It's easy to swing my sword. It's easy to do the spin. I got a hook shot, which is all I need. I want to play this right now. Talking about this has made me want to sit down and play this game again right now.
So pop by my Twitch stream today. I'll be playing Link to the Past.
Okay, that's good, buddy. That was over an hour of Link to the Past talk, which was perfect. And you finally got to do a Zelda episode of the podcast. So congratulations.
I'm ecstatic. Thank you. Am I in the Hall of Fame now?
No, but that's your last name is probably going to always keep you out of the Hall of Fame.
Am I banned because on an episode I did say that Mario's Missing is technically good?
No, you're banned because you're a McCue, and that's just something I can't forgive. It's nothing personal. I just your mom is never getting into the Hall of Fame either.
It sounds pretty personal, my guy.
Well, okay, what it is, but it's toward your brother, not you.
That's okay. He sucks, so I get it.
Yeah, he does suck. And he probably won't listen to this to hear us say that. But if he ever does, suck it, Mark.
It's a Zelda episode. I think he might.
Yeah, he might, actually. Yeah, you're right. He probably will. Good stuff, buddy. Thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon talking about 30-year-old video games with me. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to do it.
That's going to do it for this week's episode, everybody. Bradley, thank you for giving me a call, geeking out about The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past with me, and to every single one of you nerds listening right now, thank you so much for supporting me and the show. If you're enjoying what I do, if you like the podcast, please consider supporting us over on Patreon, you guys. It's only $2. It helps me out so much. It helps keep this show going the way that it's going. I really, really appreciate it. You get extra podcasts, shout outs. You can pick the games we cover and a whole bunch of other stuff. One of those extra podcasts you get is Expansion Pass. And this Sunday's episode will be number 36. And I'll be talking about the top 10 games that I should love, but I don't. So if you're interested in that, you can see the whole list at rememberthegamepodcast.com and find a link to sign up to support us over on Patreon there as well. $2. Also, I have a P.O. box. And some of you guys have been sending me some cool stuff. It's rad. I remember the game postcards. I'd happily send you back. That's all I'm looking for. It would mean the world to me to just get postcards from all over this fucking rock we all live on, knowing where people listen to this show. And I'll absolutely send you one back, and we could be pen pals or something lame like that. It'd be a lot of fun. You can find the full address at rememberthegamepodcast.com. But it's Remember the Game, P.O. Box 69181, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, T6 Victor 1G7, as in great. I was trying to think of a word that starts with G. So that'd be really rad. And then finally, check me out on Twitch. I'm over there Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday nights from 8 to 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Look for Member the Game on Twitch, not Remember. Look for Member the Game. I'm always over there just playing video games. I spend just as much time talking with everybody. So if you want to come by and say hi, that would be fucking awesome. I'd love to see you. And that'll do it, you guys. Game Patch 15.0 hits the internet Friday morning for Patreons, Monday morning for free feeds. Expansion Pass will be live on Sunday. And I will be back in 7 days with episode 126 of Remember the Game. Thanks a lot, you guys. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers. Remember the Game is brought to you by our Patreons. I simply could not produce all the podcasts and all the crap that I'm putting out into the world without all of your support, so I would like to take a quick moment to thank every single person that has supported us at patreon.com/rememberthegame. And I'm sure I'm going to fuck up a couple of these names. I think a couple of you listened to it just to hear me stumble my way through this. But with that said, a humongous, giant Remember the Game thank you to Aaron Cuphall, Aaron Lawson, Adam Anderson, Adam Beasley, Adam Oshirello, Alan C., Alex Martinez, Andre, Andrew Halupchuk, Andrew Wright, Andy Baker, April Zane, Arpad Botos, Ashley Cronenbitter, Badar Barhumi, Ben Booya, Ben Busha, Ben Drinkin, Bradley McCue, Brandon O'Brien, Brian McKay, Brian Medeiros, Brian Ransom, Bullfrog, Charlie M., Chris Campbell, Chris Fleury, Chris Wilson, Christopher Russell, Chuck Schlarp, Corey, Craig Rutt, Crash Bandicoot, Chris Knife 007, Dan T., Danny Vega, Dario Omen, Dave L., Dave McGee, Dave Thompson, David Ray, David Schnatter, fucking there was one, Desert Tortoise, Divalk, Du Howe, Dominic S. Thompson, Doug Dorn, Doxer, Dylan, Eric Cannard, Evan Refuse, Fraser Burns, Gary C., Geek Life Radio, Grant Robertson, Grimpy, Henri SJA Flash, James Clark, Jared, Jason Adams, Jason Cortez, Jay Clutch, Jeff Johnson from Game on GNT, Jeffrey Mathis, Jer Bear, Joe Buck, Joe Gillespie, Joe Mack, John Doskis, John Quack, Jordan, Josh Morgan, Josh from the Press Start to Join podcast, Kate Roberts, Casey Rarick, Keegs, Kevin Chincholo, Kevin Donlin, Kevin Hufford, CryptoBox, Kyle Paul, Lane Orr, Leon Knapskog, Les Winan, Luca, Mackenzie Wheeler, Mark Jones, Mark McCue, Mark 209, Martin Greenwood, Matt McLean, Matthew Davis, Michael Mathis, Mikhail Haig, Mike Malawany, Miklos Blackshaw, Miles from BringBackRetro.com, Morgan, Mr. Impressive, Mr. Nick, Wolverine Films, Nathan Tremblay, Nathan W, Nick Sills, No One Cares, OG Big Titus, PB McFadden, Peebs, Retro Ghosty Ghost, Rex, Robert Fuchsia, Robert L, Rome 21, Ryan Bayshore, Ryan Kinchin, Ryan Yeager, Scott Brooks, Scott V, Sean Razine, Sharonic, Slick Rick, Starro Praben, Stupid Monkey, Super Mary Ho, The Giraffe, The T-Word, Thomas D. Reynolds, Tim L, Tim Riel, Tim L, Tim Riel, Todd O, Tom, Tony, Travis, Trevor Hillier, Tyler, Very Cool Dude, Vincent L, Vladstein, Whiteboro, Wyman Brooks, Xwater, Yamcha, and Zane Donovan. That might be the best I've ever done. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. Talk to you all on Friday with Game Patch. Cheers.